the Face Downs, your source for TCG news and all things Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm Lucas.
I'm Ruben.
And I'm Joe.
Oh,
that was pretty quick.
That was
Joe.
pretty quick, Joe. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. It's almost like you're...
You must have predicted what we were going to say over Discord before we said it, so you could respond like you were in person.
Almost like I am. We come in here from Palmerston North.
We are coming to you from a rainy Palmerston North.
Yep.
We are in person together. We are in studio.
I never thought the first time would be in Palmy.
No, neither did I.
We both live in Auckland. You live down here. I assumed you'd come up for like a regional or something, but you were first to it.
Exactly, and I managed to get you guys down here for the 3v3 and the multi-format. So
Yes.
It's been a good weekend.
Phenomenal weekend. I've personally never been to Palmerston North, so I thought, this is a great time.
I came once. It was like completely pitch black. I played a gig in a small bar and then stayed the night at someone's left at 5 a.m. So I have never seen Palmerston North during the daytime, is what I'm saying.
I mean, it's all right.
It's not
She's pretty cute, Gorge.
The food's good.
Food is good.
Food's good.
Food
Burger
is
King.
good. Burger King is great.
Slow service, but we got there.
Yeah, shout outs to both Palmerston North Burger Kings. The slowest Burger Kings I've ever been to, but like good food.
Redefining fast food.
Making us wait for it just made us so much happier to get it.
I just was humbled by the experience. So yes, we're coming to you live from Palmerston North. We are coming off the large weekend hosted at Valkyrie Games that included a 3v3 event and a multi-format event that has just concluded today. So 3v3 was held yesterday. We had an amazing turnout, 48 players.
Yeah, it was huge.
49 including the judge and 50 including a bystander. So
Exactly.
Yes.
technically... 50 people in
50
Palmy.
attendance, which rivals the largest event you've ever held in Palmerston North and is the largest in-store event. Is that correct for Valkyrie?
Yeah, it's Valkyrie's biggest ever Yu-Gi-Oh event. So
Yeah.
it was huge for us. It definitely stretched us to our capacity, but we do have an upstairs area which they are working on.
Yeah, they had
Yes.
like a whole upstairs that
Which
was
is
completely empty that we could have actually held
bigger than
things in.
downstairs as well.
Yeah.
So like, there's also a back room which was about double the size of the room.
It was ironic because
yeah.
people downstairs were so cramped and we would go
We were just
upstairs and
chilling
it's like,
upstairs.
oh, there's so much room. There's like free tables everywhere.
Unfortunately, though, that did mean that we were hanging out on the low end tables, but
I thought Top Cut should have been on the up floor, you know?
True.
They could keep
Would've
their
made more
deck
sense,
secret
yeah.
or whatever.
I mean, not like it wasn't too much.
It was only 4 rounds with Top Cut.
Yeah, so we were at exactly 16 teams.
Exactly. And
So
yeah.
the decision was to keep it at 4 rounds because it meant that you are playing the hardest you can. Because there is no leeway. So obviously, at a 5-round tournament, you would have an XO and 3 X1s.
4. There was
Like,
yes, at a 5-round
they
tournament.
would be the ones topping.
Yeah, there were more X1s than there were top 4 spots.
Yes, and that's what the decision was, to keep it at 4 rounds. Because obviously, the 17th team puts it to a 5-round event in order to have the fairest tiebreakers and everything.
People just didn't want to play for an extra hour because it was already going to be quite long.
And I also think it's a different format entirely. Like, I think maybe people are more willing to play 5 rounds individually, and I think maybe 4 rounds as a team is a bit more sustainable.
I also think with the 4 rounds, Dino made a good point when I brought up 5 rounds. If we did do the 5 rounds, it was kind of unfair for the team that went undefeated into the 5th round because all they could literally just show up and scoop, and they were still top. So it kind of takes away the competitive
Well, it was
edge, I
unfair
suppose,
for the team they were up against.
Yes.
Because there's a chance that well, I guess it doesn't really affect their win rate.
No.
But, you know, like if you go up against the finals team and they just scoop, it's kind of crap, and you might lose to another team that has better tiebreakers or something because of that.
Yeah.
Because maybe there was 2 5-0s or 2 4-0s, and one of them.
Or maybe it's like
ended
a
up 5-0.
3-1-1, like a draw.
Right,
Yeah, you
But
just
there was
don't
never an
know.
instance where it messed with your tiebreakers that your final round opponent just scooped.
Yeah, and
Not
it was...
that- well, we've been covering up the fact, not that we were in contention for
And that's fine. I think, well, because this event was run under the new ban list, obviously it comes into effect in New Zealand as of tomorrow. So the decision was made to hold this event at the updated February 7th ban list. And I think that's because people were kind of done with the previous format. Like, it was kind of done. Like, we knew that it was going to be either V-Dub, Tri-Brigade, you know, it was pretty much Drytron. Like, you're just going to see it.
Protoss Turbo or Featherstorm Turbo.
Yeah.
And both of those were mostly gone by the end of this list, and we were all pretty keen to just not have to side for that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And to be honest as well, I think that, in like 12, 18 hours time, we are in the new format. So
Yes.
it just did not make sense to play a format that literally had 48 hours
Dead
time.
format.
Yeah, no one wants to play a dead format, I don't think. And I'm happy we did
Yeah.
do the new format, even though I don't think I really prepared that well for it.
You were missing Protoss.
It opened my eyes, and probably showed me how much I relied on Protoss in the Wellington Regional. And
It is, yeah, it was a touch of a free win button, and that's fine. Like, the thing is that, like, kind of all decks at their inception have had that. Like, you think of, Drytron when that first came out. 3 Ben 10. Oh, 1 Ben 10, 3 Eva, 2 Eva, 1 Eva. Like, you had the accessibility to so much. Obviously, Sword Soul, the not even hard work to find Protoss.
No.
And then, obviously, Lurlisk Tri-Brigade having the ability to just essentially set up one of the most formidable boards with protection.
And then occasionally, like, they just draw into a trap that's how they win the game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a really refreshing event. I think people were excited for the experience. This event was also Grand Creators Legal. It's been out for a week now. And how do we think in terms of Grand Creators appearance? What do we think?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Adventure
Oh my
is
God.
out there, and it is everywhere.
I think it was definitely a rude awakening for us round one because, for me especially, because I hadn't really done a lot of testing against the Adventurer engine outside of our games.
Yeah.
And round one, I go up against PK
Adventures.
and
Yeah.
I definitely think that is probably the strongest deck of the format right now, just because of how many extenders it's got, how many hand traps it can run, and the fact it can just put out a free Omni Negate. And first game, I went up against that, and I just was not prepared for it. And yeah, we unfortunately that kind of started our day off in a bad way.
Yeah, the
And-
first thing that happened to me was I tried to Ash and a Deer Servant and I got Gamut and I went, I deserve that. It's like my first opponent, I didn't know what he was playing. I assumed it was like some kind of Invoke Dogmatica Shadol deck because it was Scott Beardsley.
Yep.
And he always plays that deck. So like he starts off with a Deer Servant, I'm like, I'm just gonna Ash this. Like that's not a very strong open. Gamma, I'm like, yeah, okay. And he still didn't have a very good open. Like it was like Ecclesia, Maximus stuff and passed on a Fleur-de-Lis and a Shizen. And I'm like, oh, I can absolutely beat that. And then looked at my hand and it's like, well, I've got 3 V-Dub spells and a Nyan. That does nothing. Top decked into Rite of Aramesia, so I did the adventure lines and like, tried to play, he stopped my King Long, he ashed it, and I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. So I managed to like establish the adventure stuff, but it wasn't enough on its own. And then I didn't lose a single game for the rest of the event. I literally 2-0'd my next 3 opponents with V-Dub adventures. It was not close when I drew at least a V-Dub card and a adventure card. Like, it is unfair.
Yeah, and it was rough because being a 4-round tournament as we just talked about, like it was
No
very
room
much
for error.
sudden death,
Yeah.
and we lost round one.
Which means we probably wouldn't
Which
have
we
topped, even
probably
if we
couldn't
went
have even
undefeated,
topped, yeah.
unfortunately, just due to tiebreak.
Yes. And that's fine. I think, realistically, the Adventurer engine is so powerful. The flexibility that it has with so many different decks is truly something that people are just, I think, kind of grasping now. Like, they're understanding its versatility, that it may just be more than a token in a level 7 Omni Negate with a bounce. And I
It's
think
also a 4 and a 7,
it's a free level 4 and a free level 7.
as I found out.
And I think that all in all, it's a really powerful engine. For me, what was the most interesting personally playing Hero Striker was just the skill drain.
Hero
the,
Striker.
Yeah, Hero, sorry. Just going by what Konami called it.
Yeah, did you enjoy normal summoning Stratos and activating Shadow Mist Effect engraved to add Mali?
No, but I loved activating Fusion Destiny.
Yeah.
Good card.
Even at 2, feels alright.
Even at 2, it's pretty strong. For me, it was skill drain. The presence of skill drain was just so powerful against Striker.
It's your new worst enemy. You thought Io was your
Oh,
enemy.
no, I will take a skill drain over an IO every single day because I can out IOs with my spell. I can out skill drains with my spell cards. I can't out IOs with spells.
That's always what I've said about those cards, is that Io only loses to established boards because you can't draw into removal. And Skill Drain, while it does stop your game plan, like you could draw into the removal for it. The removal for Io has to be drawn before Io is activated or you lose the game,
Yes.
effectively. Like MST Cosmic.
Yeah.
Or it has to be chainable.
Yeah.
Must be chainable. But yeah, I think really strong event. We did have an Auckland team take it out. Sorry,
Shout outs to
Palmerston
Dino,
North. Yeah.
the 4th 3v3. I feel so upset because, like, I don't know, I wanted to take him down because, like,
You want to stop them, man.
he asked us to be on a team and we're like, no, we're going to team face down. So he's like, oh, I enjoy losing because I've never lost a 3v3. And then he went 1-3 in Swiss and still won. I'm so salty.
Well, I mean, you win the
Dino
matches.
simply can't lose.
We all-
You
had
win
a
the
bit
matches that
record.
matter. That's
What
the
I'm salty
thing.
about is the fact that I'm pretty sure he is actually just blessed. Like,
Yeah.
if we like, I'm pretty sure if we were on his team, we probably would have won just because like we would have drawn better hands somehow and like had sackier turns because Dino was on our team.
But I
see
think,
that.
yeah, so congratulations to the Auckland team that took it out.
It was Dino,
Connor, and Aaron.
who are
So
all great players. Like, I'm
amazing players, all three of them.
I'm friendly shit talking them, not
Yeah.
actually mad at them.
So that was
Team Overcats, I believe it was.
Overcats?
Opposite of Underdogs.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
I mean, I like that.
Anyway.
That's a fun one.
You know, more creative than Team Face
Yeah.
Downs, I guess.
Yeah. So branding. Speaking of
Branding.
which, we were wearing our t-shirts. We will be debuting them, or showing them off at more events that we do
I can
attend.
chuck a photo of them in the pod.
Yeah, sure. We've got like gorgeous t-shirts that Joe ironed together and Lucas designed. So those were fun to wear throughout the day. So the winning event, or the winning team, was Team Overcats. This consisted of Prank Kid Adventures, Shadole, and Sword Soul. Unfortunately, we don't have any deck lists, which is a wee bit of a shame. Obviously, going into the new format, it can be a wee bit
might be
tough.
putting them up.
Oh,
hopefully
yes,
next
we
week.
might,
We
if
might
you-
have them for the podcast ready on YouTube. Anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And if you, be sure to check out your Move TCG for those events and the profiles. So I think the standout for me in that top team was probably the Prank Kid Adventures. I think really solidifying the power of that engine. And as we've discussed this, the things that Prank Kids had no problem resolving their effects, except the first one.
Yeah. It reminds me of VW actually, where
Yep.
often like the first one, once you've dumped that King Long and I've resolved that, I literally in my head go, oh, I won.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing my opponent can do now that stops me. And Prank Kids is very much that way.
I think Adventurer is very I think people haven't realized how strong that is yet. I mean, obviously top players do know it's really good, right? But I don't think it's been fully, developed in a way.
It's so new.
It's so new,
Yeah,
and people haven't probably fleshed out the best decks yet.
I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
playing with it and reading about it are two very different things.
Yes.
Because of course, when you design a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, you have a perfect storm, right? Like my VW deck ends on 2 Baron and a Beatrice to dump Scythe, so one of them reborns it with protection, and then a Chuche to prevent you from getting chaliced or something like that, right? Crazy strong deck. But I did that once, I think. And even when I did it, I'd sided out Scythe, so I reborn a token collector instead. Still pretty good. But where it really comes down to it is that first game against Scott Beardsley. It took him 5 turns to kill me. Because I had Draco back, and I had Griffin Rider, and I had the token. And the token can't be destroyed by battle.
The first time of battles, yeah.
Draco back is Compulse. Griffin Rider is a repeatable Omni. And I was just grinding out value from that engine that just wasn't, at first glance, in my opinion, what it was for.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it wears your opponent down, like how Drident did in Tri-Brigade Zodiac.
Yes.
The Drident would wear your opponent down, and then the Tri-Brigade's killed.
And it was that same sentiment carried for Zulich. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
Dryden 4 back row.
Totally.
So threatening. Even the adventurous stuff, shuffling back your Griffin Rider, drawing a card for turn. You're
Yeah.
just cycling your deck for a recurable Omni Negate as well as loading
Yeah.
up your grave.
And I think one of my favorite things about it in the decks that it's good in, Prank Kids, Virtual, and Phantom Knights, is they're all decks that Imperm wasn't a particularly strong card against.
No.
And it doesn't add an Imperm target. None of the cards that you really use in the Adventure Engine lose to Imperm. And I'm a strong believer that if you play a deck that doesn't lose to a certain hand trap, you shouldn't add engines that do. It's why I've never liked the idea of you should put in Vote in Virtual World because you don't normal summon. It's yes, but now my opponent's Imperm does something. Whereas
Yes.
before it was a literal dead card in their hand, which was so good.
I think for me, the Adventurer engine, the thing I've noticed the most about it isn't the fact that it's an Omni Negate that they put out first. It's they put up even more board presence than they were before, and you waste even if you stop the Adventurer engine, you've wasted your Ash, you've wasted something on it.
I'm already scared of
stop letting
Phantom
it come
Knight for
out.
that
Yeah.
reason, because I already hate having Ash against that deck, because
Yeah.
it only hits Bardiche, and
Exactly.
by that point you're already kind of dead.
And if you waste, say, 1 or 2 cards in hand dealing with the Adventurer engine, they're still going to have a full board of whatever the deck normally does anyway, and you
Yeah.
can't get around that with 2 or 3 cards. So it's very, it's just super strong.
It's scary.
It's
yeah,
scary.
it's scary
strong.
that it exists, and it's scary we're going into a format dominated by, a better fusion spell than Shadow Fusion
Spoiler
in branded
alert.
Albas.
Next painful choice, it's going to go 2-2.
You think so?
Right,
Yeah,
2-1.
two right,
You're gonna go 2
Yeah.
Water Enchantress,
Straight away,
2 right?
I think it's too
Yeah.
strong an engine at the moment.
I think it deserves to be.
It deserves toning down to a point where it's still broken, but it's not what it is now. Because I
Yeah.
feel like it's definitely. I mean, I've seen a lot of things come and go in Yu-Gi-Oh, and this is one of those ones where you're like, yeah, that's a bit too strong.
It feels like a new game.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like you're playing a new game. And obviously not every deck is going to play Adventures. I think Sword Soul, one of the best decks of the format, isn't going to be big on it. Striker can't play it. And while I think Albas will probably find a build that abuses it, There's also Alba's builds that just don't care
Yeah.
and like are just gonna max out on hand traps.
That
So
also comes out in April. We're currently in
Yeah.
February, so
I do
there's...
believe that'll come out before a ban list though. So we're gonna be in this format until at least May.
Yes, again, because we have no longer a kind of a definitive date, your best assumption for any ban list adjustments, for those listening, will be around the next core set release. So Dimension Force is scheduled to come out around the 5th of May, if my memory serves me correctly, or just after.
Say, when does Ruben's memory never serve him correctly? He's like the most perfect memory.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Encyclopedia.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so anticipate a ban list to be around that time, either before the product releases or just on release, because they'll obviously aim to promote strategies that are coming out in Dimension Force, of which there are many. You've obviously got a lot of nostalgia support, things like the weather support, which I'm very excited for, the pendulum support that's coming out in there,
One punk card as well, I
the
think. Yeah.
punk support, but then you've also got the new decks like the Therians and the Scareclaws. Like there's so many different ways, then like new strategies that are designed to be coming
I'm
out
so
in that way.
excited for Therians. I can't wait to equip Absolute Zero from Grave and pop my opponent's board.
I think come May, it's probably going to be due for a reset. Like, I don't know if I can go another 4 months of.
You're gonna be saying that for a
Phantom
while.
Knight. I know,
Joe.
I know.
You're
I
gonna
know.
be saying that for
I know,
a
but,
long
like,
time.
I
We
think
just got a reset. I'm so sorry.
we got a small reset, but I think decks like Phantom Knight, Striker, need to kind of.
Striker just came back.
They need to like either push them on into something new or wipe them. Like,
I
you know
think
what I mean?
Linkage pushes Striker somewhere
Yeah.
new.
Linkage
I think
could
that-
make some new, yeah, and I agree
I think
with that.
you know we've seen the semi-limit to Fusion Destiny, so they're already like, okay,
Yeah,
we're not a big fan of everyone having access to this tool.
They also banned it in Japan very quickly.
very
and
quickly. Yeah.
It wasn't quick. They had it for an entire format.
Yeah.
So there was like a 3-month adjustment in terms of like its relevancy once Destroy Phoenix Enforcer was printed.
That's faster than like
Well, no, the card itself wasn't new.
no, but like that's faster than like Block Dragon got hit. It feels like Block Dragon was like popular as a card in was it April with Secret Slayers Eternity card
April
stuff?
was that was Secret Slayers for us.
and it
April
lived until January, right?
I would be no
Rise of the Duelist. It was still legal.
Rise of Duelist came out the same year.
Yeah, but like Fusion Destiny lived less than Block Dragon here.
Oh,
I see what you
That's
mean.
what
sure.
I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, right.
it didn't live
Yeah.
very long at all compared
Oh
to cards
no,
that were like
that's
way more broken.
I mean that's October to end of January. So
It's 4 months.
October, November, December,
I'm
January.
saying they're gonna ban it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're gonna hit it.
They're gonna ban it.
go.
That's
They're
the
gonna
point.
It's gonna
But
go.
first, they have to sell OTS 18.
You know,
They've already flubbed that one because it's at 2, and I feel like the price
and
is
also
gonna be low.
I don't know we don't know the other 2 ultimate rares. I've got no
Yeah.
clue. Like
Ash
I
Blossom,
strongly think like people are just gonna play one Fusion Destiny or like
potentially, yeah.
cut playing it at 3 in a lot of the decks that were playing it and just go like, it's a Verte target. I'd rather have a hand trap.
yeah. And we do have obviously like the Ghost from the Past too. Obviously, little to none is known about it. It does have obviously the Decode Talker Heat Soul, which actually brings Code Talkers to the meta.
That
Like
deck's gonna be really good.
that deck is
actually.
really powerful. We are still missing like I believe one more of the link from hands, which can search Cyberse. The Wind code generator is something similar to that. How they all have the link from hands. And then obviously it's got the Boral End Dragon, like a larger rocket payoff. I think obviously we're anticipating seeing the, agents, the structure deck R agent support in there, which would make a lot of sense because it's not in Battle of Chaos because that set, which we can talk about now, has actually been announced. I believe the last time we recorded there wasn't much known about it.
Not much about it, no.
So now we've seen the entire Battle of Chaos set.
Where's the excitement?
I honestly, it's not really the gig.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's not really the gig.
It's very much like a Dawn of Majesty kind of set. Or
It's a Blazing Vortex without the pot.
It'll literally pass us by
Yeah.
and nothing will change.
Yeah.
I would say it's
guarantee you
closer
that.
maybe even to like a Lightning Overdrive set where there's like maybe one.
There's not a card. There's no card.
There's nothing?
Nothing.
No, it's like a Blazing Vortex, but it doesn't have Pot of Prosperity.
It's like Blazing Vortex without the one card that made it
Financial
relevant.
advice? Don't buy a case.
Yeah, we're not financial advisors. However, I would,
Although,
if you are a big nostalgia support fan, things like your DMs, your
Then
Blue
buy some
Eyes,
singles.
yeah,
Because they're
then
gonna
go
be cheap.
support your local stores
Buy a box
and
from
grab
the store.
those.
And grab those are singles specifically.
And if you're interested in the Dynamorphia stuff, that's really cool.
Yeah.
When once Dimension Force comes out, like getting Rexturn and their fusion from Banishing from Grave, that's super interesting as well.
I don't know. I feel like with Dynamorphia, they let the dual avatar person back in. Like, just designing an archetype that's like, it's cool. It's got some things, but it's like ultimately,
enough, yeah.
you read their cards, you're like, where's the 3+1? Where's like, you read Moye and then you read their Searcher, and you're
Teresia.
like, So Moye extends you, makes a token, and draws a card, and this one just gets you one trap.
One trap.
That's it. Like, it doesn't feel like the archetype that gets 3 secret rares and a ton of love.
Yeah, I look forward to bulk diving to get all the cards that I'm looking for, because nothing I'm particularly searching for is at a high
I have
caliber.
a strong feeling I'm going to get those DDD cards for free.
Yeah, I mean, the only one to hunt for is the Fluanderies.
And if you're lucky, there is that Dark Magician in there.
You do have the 25th anniversary.
You could
Dark
gamble
Magician.
thousands of dollars, actually. What are we talking about?
You can pass. I know.
Support your OTS stores. Why don't you buy some Steel Product and see if you can get that 25th
You should actually-
anniversary
Not
Dark
a
Magician
financial advice podcast. You should buy 6 cases of Dark. How about
Yes.
that?
from your store that needs the most support.
I think it is worth maybe briefly talking about Fluanderies. I think that card is enough to push them forward. Not so much to tier 1 or anything, but it definitely helps that deck.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
that's nutty.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
However, the format has completely shaped up into removing Droll and adding Lancia.
Correct.
Due to the adventure tokens now showing up. So while I think they are losing less to a side deck card that hurts them more, Lancia essentially turns off that deck at the same time.
I would also say as well, maybe Fluanderies going into a full established adventure board.
Probably not the
Maybe
hottest.
not. Yeah, 'cause they
I would
struggle going second.
I'd definitely be on like Stormfalls. I feel like
Yeah.
Stormfalls are a good option.
Like
in this format.
Stormfall?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean,
Because at
Why
any
so?
but at any time that turn you contribute a card. So it no matters. It means that if you have an Eglin and a Stormforth, you can just search for something and then immediately tribute summon for your Impen.
That's true. But I mean, like, they have their own Stormfall.
Yeah, but it's not quick.
it's not quick play. Which is something that actually comes up quite a bit.
I
found in
guess
that
it's
deck,
lingering.
Yeah, and I mean, Stormforth was a really powerful card in today's event that was
Yes.
held in the multi-format tournament.
Yeah.
So today we had 19 attendees.
I was going to say,
for
Fluander is the evil swarm of this format.
well, it could go 3-1 at your next event, or 4-1 at your next event,
4-1,
actually. So today we had our multi-format event. So this was a format that was eventually designed, I believe it was you and Greg in collaboration.
Greg,
Yeah, so
100%.
Greg designed this. You
Greg.
promoted it.
Greg,
Greg Mansfield from Dice Jar Games. Good old Griggles.
Good old Griggles.
Can't wait to be there. By the way, Facedowns will be attending the Dunedin Regional in April.
Yes, we might
Looking
be,
forward to commentating and judging.
We might be doing some live commentary.
Yes.
In
Yes,
person.
I mean, I won't spoil too much, but Greg has spoken to me about a pretty cool setup for that as well.
Oh yes,
Okay.
I
The
can't
stream
wait.
is gonna
I've
look good.
definitely heard some things too.
Yeah.
So today was the multi-format event. So this involves an event that was actually the first episode Joe was ever on.
That's true.
So it
'Cause
was,
we were going to go down. And
we were going to
play
go
it.
down, and then it didn't happen. And so this was an event that is decks from December 2014 backwards. So any event of a larger caliber, any deck with a event success and recorded results was able to be played. We saw quite a diverse turnout, I would say. There was
less
definitely...
diverse than what we've seen at
Yeah.
the first one. Like there was like actually repetitive decks in this one, which is something that we haven't seen all that much of. But I mean,
you had a lot of- you
it
had-
was for the most part diverse. Though.
The bottom end of it was pretty,
Yeah.
like, wild. Like,
It
there
was
was a lot
cool.
of random
Yeah.
jank that was going on.
Yeah.
Alongside the Dragon Rulers and spellbooks that were everywhere.
Just before we start on it, I think one special thing I would like to mention was like last night we all got together and there was about 4 or 5 people that wanted to play but they didn't have a deck. So we literally just got everyone's bulk
Yep.
into a room and just like built 4 decks. I think we got in the end 3 or 4.
We
decks.
built Evil Swarm, Cleafort, Dragon Rulers,
And Harpies.
and Harpies for people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like the franticness in which we were like, does anyone have Karma Cuts?
And like
I want to play BA.
Yeah, finding lists that like were excluding certain cards that we just didn't have access to.
Yeah,
Just,
I think you were going down a train with Cleafort. Like,
Yeah.
I need to find one that isn't playing 3 Vanities, but like that kind of sucks ass because
Yeah.
the best card in that deck is Vanities.
And I was trying to find a BA list without Karma Cut. Couldn't find one, and when
Yeah,
I
no,
finally
why would
did,
you do it?
was like a bad list, and I was
Yeah.
like, can't play that.
You find a
so-
list by like a 14-year-old that showed up to a YCS and still topped because they were playing BA without Karma Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really great turnout. I think, our little adventure last night definitely provided a lot more attendance today. I think
cool, yeah.
all in all, we saw a pretty, diverse attendance. Notably, there were 3 decks that were all represented at the 3s, or in triplets. That was Dragon Rulers, Spellbooks, and Cleaforts. And I think the honorary mention for Dragon Rulers at a number 4 was the Lightsworn Rulers that was being played.
Yeah, it was like on rulers.
I can't remember if it was like a Herman Hansen or something. It was like a Dragon Ruler. It was playing Tempest and Blaster. I played against it, and it was obviously on Eclipse Wyvern to search JD.
It was cool.
It was hella cool. I did win by deck out though. I played against him, and he got down to 5 cards in deck. I mind crushed his 2 JDs, and he's just like, I don't really have like a win card left, so he just decked himself.
Yeah, I did see you get hit for Honest like twice with Honest. It was just like 11 bounce next turn.
Yeah.
11
he was normaling
bounce
Honest and bouncing it, but I was the one that managed to Honest him because game 1 he sat down a JD. I had 2 Tellarknights on the field, and I go battle phase attack, and he goes like, do I Necro Gardener? No, I'll be fine. And I'm like, Honest, dead. And he's like, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah.
I'm the Honest deck.
Speaking of Tellarknights, I think you weren't the only Tellarknight.
I was not. I even
There was
played
2.
and lost to the
Tellarknight
other
player.
Tellarknight player
Yeah.
who, he opened Deneb.
Yeah.
That's
And
how
he
you
was
I
playing
lost
2 Rota.
I lost the Clee Mirror and
They opened Scout.
Open Scout.
Yeah,
Ken
it's-
Open Scout.
Yeah.
Scout. So
The mirrors back in these times were often miserable because it was like...
They were. Yeah.
well, they were just so quickly determined.
The
It
first
was
person
just
to get off to the races just wins.
yes. Once you snowball, it's just that's when you keep going.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing the Shadol mirror, and then it's a miserable...
And then it's I'm really
so
don't want to
so
snow.
poly.
Poly each
bigger
other.
pain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go over the decks, I suppose, that we were playing.
Yeah. So
Ruben was on.
I was on Cleaforts.
Yeah.
This is a deck that I'd built myself. This was a Robin Som list from the YCS Sydney in December 2014. I think I potentially anticipated more Shadol attendance, and that was definitely the reasoning behind this list. In fact, speaking with Keza, Keza actually attended this event, and the largest meta threat at this moment in time was Chaos Dolls. So that would be decks involving your black and white dragons, your baby Chaos Dragons, things like Eclipse Wyvern to get dads. And this deck was mainly a lot more in tuned to outing things like constructs with main decked Stormforths, as well as main decked Shadow Imprisoning Mirrors. Just
You were really
to
hot on
simply.
playing those.
Because I think personally, I was expecting more of a dark presence. I was thinking more of
You thought
dark
there'd be more BA and
attendance.
Shadol, which there actually wasn't. So
There was
that-
no BA,
that could
and
have
there
maybe
was
been an
a
incorrect
Shadol
choice,
player.
'cause you played against like Spellbooks, the mirror, like that card didn't really come up. I
Yeah,
don't think.
so it was an interesting turnout all in all. And I think that the side deck that was chosen was probably one that I also quite enjoyed. The thing with these older formats, and this is something that we obviously have all experienced, is that it is a lot harder to find these particular side deck cards because they are from an older time. In particular, I was missing things like Spell Shattering Arrows and Ojama Trios. For reference, Ojama Trio's most recent printing was the structure deck Unlimited Dino Smashers Fury. And I think all in all, this deck did fine. I went 3-2. I lost the Mirror and 2 Spellbooks. And I think there wasn't much I could have done in either of those matches. Like I said, the Mirror for Cleaforts is whoever gets Scout and Sticks at first is the winner. And then in the case of Spellbooks, the amount of Phoenix Wing Blasts my Scouts experienced that match was crazy.
I mean, you did get to draw Scout after that happened.
Yeah, you do. It does
You get to
just
draw
go
Scout.
on top, so I do get to draw Scout. But to be honest, like it was, that was one of the toughest things. And once Spellbooks do start resolving cards, it is a bit tougher to catch up, especially when like judgments are very threatening because
And they can fate your...
sacrifices so that they don't trigger.
Joe,
But
how'd your games go?
So I played Clifford.
This is Helmet
I
cast now.
went X2 as well. I didn't want to play the deck. So I really, really wanted to play Burning Abyss. Like last night I was lying on the floor like for probably about,
You're like
2
kicking your legs
hours
like a
trying to...
schoolgirl, like,
trying to find it.
I'd love to milligraph. That'd be so nice.
So I was trying to find a BA list with the bulk that we had. And the problem we had is like, as I said before, we couldn't find Karma cards. So I couldn't do it. So I just went with a Cleafort list that was quite an average list, to be honest. I had to find something that had 2 Vanity's Emptiness.
Because you only had
because
2.
we only had 2. I had to find something that only had 2 skill drain because someone else needs to borrow 1 for a side. So like it was a bad list, but it was fun.
I think a running theme with our decks was that we all picked decks that arguably weren't really at their peak in 2014. Like I played Tellarknights, you both played Cleaforts, but you didn't get to play Towers Turbo,
No.
and I didn't get to play Constellar Diamond.
We didn't stealth either. Was a huge. mess,
stealth,
like,
Monolith,
stealth is insane because of the quote unquote like magical meltdown protection.
Yeah. So my matchups that I won against Harpies, which was a scary matchup. They can just destroy your scales. I won against Battery Man.
Yes.
Also a scary matchup because they can just OTK out of nowhere. And I believe Shadow was my other win. And I lost to Spellbooks and Dragon Rollers. So
fair, yeah.
Yeah, Spellbooks. Again, I lost to the same Spellbook player that Ruben lost to, Jaffe, and he just kept fating my scout, and that was the end of that. Like I just couldn't recover. I found that Clearthought kind of doesn't have a good recovery unless because it very much is like you need 2 cards to.
I mean, Scout's a
perform
crazy
eventually.
card if you have an extra deck stacked.
It
You
is,
can sometimes
yeah.
just summon 5 monsters if you go Scout such a high scale.
The problem I
or low
had is
scale.
like I top deck a scout against him and he had Jalgon up, so like at that point
Yeah,
you're like,
fair.
well, I'm dead. So that went badly. Dragon Rulers. I wish I didn't show the person I was playing against the night before how to beat them, how to beat Clearthought because they actually don't do very well.
Oh, was
against
it
the
Skaggs?
no, it was against
Shane.
Shane.
Oh, Shane, yeah.
So I lost to the eventual winner. And he made a Colossal Fighter to bash over my... he double KO'd into my shell.
Yeah.
Double attack one, and ended up losing that game. But
Because Fighter comes back.
yeah, it comes back and he just attacked again and had more Dragon Rollers. Like, they just stack their grave, and if you don't deal with them, they just come back and win. Like, it's one of those decks.
But that's kind of the nature of this, is like giving people knowledge, and like knowledge of this era helps a lot. Because a lot of the time there were these sort of silver bullet outs to decks that people just knew, like, oh, the way you beat Clearthoughts is you make Colossal Fighter. And that knowledge has kind of been lost, so it's sort of fun to see it come back
Yeah.
and thrive in a completely random meta. Like,
I think so.
the fact that there were more Clearthoughts than BAs and Shadows is so funny.
I was trying to find a Storm list for Clearthought.
Yeah,
the
just to
card
blow up.
Storm,
Yeah.
because
Not Stormforth, but Storm.
Storm, because you used to just set like a sacrifice going first.
Yeah.
Well, going second, sorry. And you just like stormed one of their back row, and you get a scout. And like and the back row was often like a bottomless,
MST, bottomless,
MST,
warning. Yeah.
those
I might
sorts of
play
cards.
Storm
So
and beat up. Sounds pretty
I
good.
love Storm, and it was like so cool. And you could storm them plus stack your extra deck. If
Get rid of their scales, set your
Get rid of
scales.
your scales. Yeah, it was a really cool build. But I unfortunately only found one that was in January 2015.
Yeah.
So.
Which is just at
Just
the,
at
just
it.
at
See,
the
I'm the exact same. There's like a really awesome like post Secrets of Eternity Tellarknight list that I'm like, oh, it's playing 2 Trivia. Oh, it's playing 3 Vanities. Like, this is exactly what I want. But
Because the Tellarknights, I always remember their best build was when they had anti-spell with Trevor loops.
Yep.
And you just used to just like anti-spell them. They couldn't activate anything. They
Yep.
set everything, and then you trigger them, bounces it all back. And off
so
you go
I
again.
played Tellarknight, and I was playing Jake Ruger's ARGCS November 2014 list. And the reason I like this list is, A, it's post-Netch. My opponent, who did beat me, was playing an October list, so he didn't have Trigger, which was a big deal
okay.
for me.
Yeah.
But this was an era
You
where...
also, I don't think you had Oasis of Dragon Souls either.
No, people
No.
just didn't
Didn't use
Oh.
use
I
it,
don't think.
or maybe they didn't have it.
I
But
can't remember,
The
honestly.
thing about Tellarknights is it did take people a little bit of time to work out what the deck was. Because at first it was like this rank 4 turbo deck, but then Trivia came out and it became this almost like inevitability engine where Trivia loops would just win you the game because you loop anti-spell, Call the Haunted, Altairs, you could loop Cowboys for like more damage, which is very funny. And
Yes, you didn't have Oasis.
yeah, you didn't
Oasis
have
was Netch.
So they printed like a new Call of the Haunted, hilariously. And I really like the 2015 lists that are on Constellar Diamond, double Trivia, playing 3 Vanities, because why not? And
You have Ptolemaeus.
I couldn't find one, so I played this list, which I actually think was quite good. It had Honest in the main to deal with towers. It had Chalice, Duality, Soul Shard, Breakthrough Skill, Dimensional Prison, like all the good stuff. My main issue with it, and I think one of the reasons I lost to Dino on Xyz Infernities, is it did not play any hand traps. Like no Maxi, no Vela, no Crow, and like going up against certain decks, you're just so disadvantaged if you can't clutch out a win. I didn't draw any Tellarknight monsters against them either of my games either, which was rough because like once Infinity kind of get off to the races, it's so hard to break what they set up, right? So like I would set my back row, but if it was an alpha, it was just dead. I had a dead Call of the Haunted that he popped, which like inevitably actually lost me that game.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that because there's a lot of old rulings and
This
ruling
wasn't that.
revisions.
This was like just like I had to set my hand
Oh,
for the best of it and hope I drew a monster. But then game 2, he break my Call of the Haunted blind, or I think I like MST'd target his thing and then he like braked. my thing. It was Call of the Haunted, and I'm like, I can't reborn Deneb because it won't trigger because it's not in the place and activation of location, whatever.
Yeah.
Forgetting that in old format it totally did trigger when you reborned it.
And in
it
fact,
immediately died.
Deneb was the example. Deneb was the example of location and place of trigger.
It was like Deneb or like
Atlantean Dragoons.
Yes.
Those are the examples. So that's something to really interesting to touch on is the older rulings and the ways that things were revised. Obviously, decks pre-July 2014 drew for turn. Decks pre-March 2012 had ignition priority.
Yeah, we played pre-field spell errata. Yes. Oh, sorry, we played post-field spell errata.
Yeah, just because it would ruin the decks that would be posted, I suppose. Like if you had a field spell that would just stay there in your format if someone else activated a field spell, but then
I thought the errata was Duelist Alliance, wasn't it?
It was the exact same ruling where you no longer drew for turn.
So
the example would be Laser Clip would be the only one I can think of that really makes a difference. But we just figured it would. This is back to me and Greg in the first one. I spoke to him about it and he said, "No, it makes sense." Just for both people to have it, because it never really comes up with.
The only instance I believe that I can think of is Spellbooks because of Grand Spellbook Tower. But realistically, again, like that's such a fringe case, and generally one of them has a Juggernaut anyway, so you're not really going to be able to summon under them. And like your older examples are things like Gear Town. Like that's, if you're going to play like Gadget or like Redox Gadgets or something, like that's not exactly a consideration that you'll be having.
The only thing I was missing from the deck was one Gandiva, and actually like thinking about my matchups, I would have loved Gandiva. Like it's the best Xyz I think you can make besides Dweller versus Infernity because they only summon level 4 and lower monsters. So, like potentially that cost me at 2, but I can't find a Gandiva anywhere. It's so hard.
The thing I struggled with the most was I had like a 5-card side deck or a 4-card side deck. I had like a Regeki, a couple of Mirror Forces, a Curse Seal with the Forbidden Spell, which was meant to be triple of that, but that would have really helped against Spellbook. It came out once against Spellbook, but like a one-off. Like I know maybe going forward into the future we can perhaps even discuss with Greg about changing a few rules around the side deck because that seemed to be the thing that most people struggled with. It's
full of jank. Like they're always full of weird cards.
Yeah, I mean, like my previous Kleefort list before I stuck on this one was Alexander's Askaminov, who was YCS Milan top 4, and he sided 3 Jingjin Who's. The continuous trap that froze 2 back row. And this list that I was on, Robin Sims was on 2 Ojama Trio. And I was like, that's like such a weird... That's for BA, obviously, but like that's such a strange card for the side. It's an interesting discussion in terms of like the side decks of the time because, again, we are looking at this, like we as players of this multi-format event are looking back at the formats retrospectively so we can analyze, okay, why does this deck only play 1 Rhoda? Why doesn't this deck play 3 Upstart? Like, this is something that we can retrospectively look at and go, okay, these staples are crazy. Why are they not maxed out here? You can't, like, we just want to be shrinking them.
It's kind of like how GOAT format isn't representative of what the decks were at the time.
Exactly
like, at the time, everyone's like, Solemn Judgment's a bad card, it costs half your life points. Now we understand that Solemn Judgment is the most insane card in GOAT and is, like, practically ban-worthy, like with how impactful it is on game states. And I think the same could be done with old format. There's obviously the tendency that like, well, every deck's gonna side,
3 maxi, 3 vanities,
3 max, 3 effect veiler, 3, and just like max out on like the quote-unquote solemn judgments of the format. But I think there is an argument to be made that like a little bit of flexibility in deck building would make it more attractive to people who like to brew. Because I'd certainly love to do my spin on Infernity now. Like, I'd love to have a go at building, like, my own take on the list, and I don't get to do that with these cross-ban list cards.
No, and that is one disadvantage to them. But the issue is like, you'll have lists that never deserve to play Vanity's Emptiness playing it because they didn't know it existed at the time, and you get a lot of issues like that.
How broken it would be to be like, oh, I'm going to play, like, this 2010 deck with vanities. Like, it's still not as good as the 2014 decks that were all maxed out on vanities, is the thing. Like,
also, it wasn't out in 2010. So.
Sure, but like, I think it is a little bit unfair that some decks that already have advantages because they're newer, like BA and Dragon Rulers, get to play with that accumulated knowledge, that then like older decks that didn't have that accumulated knowledge or the broken cards can't play with.
What
Like,
would-
it
what
would
would
kind of
you-
even things out a little bit.
I mean, infamously, your Satella list plays 1 vanities because he couldn't afford
he
3.
literally couldn't buy. He was
There's
too poor.
you couldn't afford the cards. So, like, retrospectively, you're like,
$35
this
absolutely should be on 3 vanities.
this man's like, I should be playing 3, but I didn't have it.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Is it's like you look at these older interviews and discussions, they're like, I didn't have it. Too expensive, hard to find. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a tough decision for these kind of formats of like how much give you allow for, because there's so much retrospective like that we can apply today's knowledge to these past formats to essentially refine the decks.
Yes.
Like there's so much in these
I think,
builds that could be refined.
I discussed it in the car on the way back here.
Oh.
Dog? Hello.
Dog. That probably picks up on the mics. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Just keep talking.
So there was I thought about maybe you could have 5 cards you could swap out from the side and put 5 other cards in, so you're not like being able to like completely wipe a sideboard out and cater it to something else. The other thing I guess is, what do you guys think about Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks being in a multi-format now? Because
I mean, they're so powerful.
we've seen them
I think
dominate.
the only thing I would say is that there weren't a lot of Shadows and there weren't a lot of BAs. And I think that
That could change things. Yeah.
quadrant of decks, we're really testing your ability to not say Shadows on the podcast. That quadrant of decks balance each other out in some ways.
Yes.
Like, I think the existence of Winder makes Dragon Rulers less strong.
Definitely.
I think, like,
Yeah.
the resilience of BAs to
Although
interaction.
with that, they can just literally summon 1 dragon attack over.
But that's fine. It's 1 dragon, and that's their battle phase.
suppose.
That's the consideration. Is
and
that's
also,
like
that's assuming they play through the back row that deck is
I
playing.
guess,
And,
I
like,
guess.
people that hate that deck can put in.
because you're on like the trap builds, you have so many pieces of interaction, and you're right. Like in terms of the Burning Abyss, they have so much resiliency. Tour Guide is very much legal. And the ability for that deck to recur, we discussed that last night. Firelake of the Burning Abyss is a Raigeki that floats. Traveler of the Burning Abyss is basically a reborn spell. It's a Dark Souls for your entire archetype, but better because they just come back. And there's so many different builds that do kind of balance out those particular styles. Like even in particular things like the Spellbook matchup, you go, okay, I play mass removal. I play Firelakes. I can get rid of your Jalkins before you can stick cards. I can pop your Star Halls before you can gain that much attack.
So the question is, like, obviously every cutoff point you pick is going to have some problems like this.
Yes,
Because if you
yes.
pick, we'll just, like, cut it to 2013,
Backwards,
2012, right? Like, let's say we cut to 2012, you can't play Dragon Rulers, you can't play Spellbooks. Like, everyone can just play the broken decks from exactly December 2012. Like, what would they be? Like,
I mean, 2012, you're looking
Mobile Atlantean or...
Which is kind of fair.
I guess, but then
Yeah.
if someone shows up with, like, a 2010 deck, it's going to feel completely
think
imbalanced.
Teledad would be good then, maybe.
You think Teledad would be fine there?
I mean, that's the thing is we saw like the very first
I don't know.
multi-format event we saw Brady on Teledad, and you're like, this deck's cool,
Yes.
can't be Shadow.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we saw, and we've spoken about this at length before. Like the Duelist Alliance era really did like push for Yu-Gi-Oh to like a whole new
Yes.
level.
And I guess one of the issues is that 2014 as a cutoff point attracts so many people because
Yes.
there's a lot of fondness for that exact year.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, I don't think there's a lot of fondness for 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh.
No, there's
I actually
not.
think a lot of
No.
people hated that format.
I also think like it's funny. I don't want to say that multi-format events are by any means accessible in terms of cards, but in particular, there are some strategies that have been a lot more widely available than others. You think of things like, I mean, I'm like, for my example off the top of my head, like if you wanted to play a 2012 format, Dark World is a deck that's really powerful in that time, but those cards are barely available.
They've barely
Things
been
like
reprinted,
Dino Rabbit, it's like you only just saw a Lagia reprint, a Dolka reprint last year.
I forgot that like if it's 2012 format, it's Insecta wind-up matches, which is not what people want.
But that's the thing is, it's like, if you go back to that time, like wind-ups have basically had no reprint since that time.
Yes.
Like there's so much
a lot of that cards
yeah.
have been kind of hit on the ban list.
Yeah, I mean, Zenmaity's not there, and like Shark Magician were put to 1. But that's the thing is, it's like not even that. Like in terms of accessibility, they're basically impossible to find. So the older that they go back, or the older
Harder
and
it gets,
potential,
yeah.
the
It's
harder it
harder.
is to
Yeah,
find.
yeah.
And so that's why I think that we were pushing when we were discussing these alternative formats that have now been officially announced. By the way, we were looking at a leaked document, but these official formats now, I think that this is an important thing that they need to address going forward.
Yeah.
Is provide these accessible reprints.
Bring the
Like
cards back, yeah.
Grand Creators is now out, and we've seen basically all the Insecta cards reprinted, except for a goddamn Gigamantis, which I am still looking for, by the way.
And we're going to continue the podcast shout-outs.
I will continue
Ruben's
not
card
finding
searching.
Gigamantis, which is crazy.
So I guess is the solution like we need to do a cross-format event that, like, this one is 2015, or this one is 2016, or this one is 2017.
Problem is like, you move into those years, and you got Necros, you've got Pepe. You've got these decks that would literally be tier 0 in any format. I don't think that if you put a Pepe deck into what was there today,
It's not close, yeah.
it would not
It's
be close.
chalk and cheese, yeah.
Potentially, they might lose to a Jowgen, maybe. Probably not.
But, like,
You
that's
know,
the thing. Yeah, they have so much
I
accessible.
don't think they lose to
I
a
don't-
Jowgen.
I don't
I'm
think
not
they
gonna
do
lie.
either, no.
They play a ton of
No.
hand traps.
Yeah.
Like, that deck was kind of where the advent of playing a bunch of hand traps, like
Was good.
Troll,
Yeah.
Vela,
Maxi.
Crow, like Maxi, were everywhere.
Ogre was out.
Ogre was out, yeah. Like, Ogre kind of stomps some of those
Stomps and
decks.
spells.
Well, it's like you just normal spellbook blue effect Ogre. Okay, I've lost my spellbook on my spellcaster on board, so I can't do anything
You can't
else.
master, you can't life, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's tempting to go like, okay, we add 2015, but like we just gentlemen's out of Jin exactly.
I think you can just literally start like kind of banning cards within a multi-format because we do that like already.
Yeah.
We didn't allow FTKs.
I guess it has to
Which,
be like
begrudgingly, I had
you
to
have to ban
accept.
cards.
They're not in the spirit of the game,
Yeah.
right? So like I feel like if we maybe bring Necros into it,
Yeah.
we could do it with banning.
I do think you can make the argument of banning particular cards that aren't necessary for strategies.
Yes.
Like, I think banning Jin is so easy because Necros was an insanely good deck without Jin, and Jin is just, like, not a fun... Because, like, if your deck doesn't exist in an era in which Book of Moon is available, or you have
Dark Hole is
outs-
available.
you have outs
Raigeki is
to
available.
The Unicorn on the field, or the Clausulus, you literally have no chance. And that deck could get Jin lock pretty much
and
every time.
the ease that deck can just put a Trish on board.
Yeah, exactly.
it-
But Trish is cool because Trish is
play
an
around
archetype.
Trish.
Like,
I love that you can play around
like
Trish.
You can play around,
the
yeah.
build around Trish is just so
Yeah.
unique. Yeah, like 2015, you would see a much more advanced format of Cleforts. You would see Infernoids coming out.
Yeah.
BAs get Farfa. They get Virgil.
Yeah.
Like
okay,
they have.
Okay, then quick round table. What ban cards? What cards do you ban that you think like don't necessarily like you can't ban vanities because so many decks just played it. It would be hard to find.
It
a
was.
list.
It was also part of the format. Like
what,
that was.
what cards from 2015 do you just have to ban?
Well, you have to ban Jin.
You have to ban
You
Jin.
have to ban that. Yeah.
I think you can make an argument you have to ban towers. I think Towers Turbo just becomes like this
Yeah.
horrible thing that exists. I know.
Then you kill Clays. You just
Clay.
kill
I know.
Clays.
I know. I don't know though. I don't
can
think
still
you do
play
because you can
Cleese.
still play stealth, right? You can still play the because Cleese were definitely a deck. Like I didn't play towers.
A lot of us didn't
my
play it.
post Secrets of Eternity deck. I did not play towers.
I'm sure there are Clee lists that didn't play Towers.
I didn't play it. I played triple stealth, monolith,
Because you had Crab King in the format, you had so many outs to it that it wasn't.
and
like-
stealth. Have you like when you summon stealth against a BA board or like other Duelist Alliance decks, you can just bounce the whole entire
Yeah.
field and they don't get anything back, and then they can't respond to it. And that was stealth was summoning a stealth was as good as summoning towers in times.
Yeah.
Like yeah, sure, if you put a towers on board and there's no out in their deck, you auto win, but you have to put a lot of resources
Yeah.
into summoning that.
My
towers.
fear is
Yeah.
that 2014 Cleese is not Towers Turbo. Towers is like the inevitability win condition.
Wavering Eyes would probably be the,
Yeah. If you put in Towers Turbo, then every deck pre-Towers Turbo who isn't playing quote-unquote outs to Towers
just insta
loses to that.
Yeah.
Like going second, insta lost. Because you just
I
make
agree.
Towers and
Yeah.
you lose. So you have to ban Towers.
And trust me, they're definitely good clearless
Yeah.
without towers. Yeah.
What other cards do you think just fit in that bracket? Like, there is an argument you just, like, axe the Dragon Ruler Spellbook decks, but I think if you introduce 2015, they're not as powerful.
Correct. Yeah.
I would agree.
So I think those are fine.
I think there could be adjustments we could do, and I mean I could always chat
Yeah.
to Greg and see if we can come up with anything new for the next one. Like
I just want to play Constellar Diamond. I just want to play Constellar
Still-
Diamond.
This
so
is
bad.
Lucas's personal petition
But
to
like,
be
it's
able to play.
January
but
2015.
it
It's
brings
not
it
even
up next.
broken.
I feel like players around the country
Well,
get
Infernoid
excited when they
comes
think
out.
about Infernoid. Yeah, exactly.
Infernoid's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
I think
Necros is a fan favorite.
I think the
love
fact
it.
that you can play early Pepe without like everything, like without Pensort,
Yes.
is kind of fun because
Yes.
that
Well,
deck
you
existed.
have like
Wasn't
Draco
good, but
Pals.
Yeah, you had Magispectors.
No,
Magic-
Magic
oh,
Spectres
no,
went
no,
out.
That's Bosch.
Like-
No, they were Dimension of Chaos.
Yeah.
You would have Stick Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Ooh,
Stick chair.
yeah.
Satellite Knights 1.
Yeah, Stick Chair Tellers. You would have Clown Blade, Clown Dolls.
Clown Dolls was probably one of my favorite decks. Oh no, not Clown Dolls. Sorry, Clown Cross. I
Yes.
loved playing Necros with clowns. It was so cool.
Did you have Totally Heroes?
No, total enough.
Oh, a little bit later.
Enough.
When was it off?
2016 after Shvi, after Shining Victories.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah. I think though one thing
You'd have Monarchs.
yes, you would.
Ooh,
That would be
yeah,
that's
cool.
a really good and Cosmo. Just at the start
yeah,
of
Invasion
Cosmo.
Vengeance
Not very
end
good
of
Cosmo.
2016.
Not very good Cosmo because you do not have Dark Destroyer.
It's
you
Farm Girl on
It's
its
Farm Girl.
turbo.
It's Farm Girl Forerunner.
Yeah.
Farm Girl. Farm Girl slipped by the
Even the fact
Forerunner.
that you can play Cosmo like we played essentially 2015 decks in 2014 format,
Yeah.
I think is exciting. So like maybe there's an argument that we push it forward, and then like if people like it, we just push into 2016. We ban like I don't know a couple
Okay.
cards there.
Yeah.
Plush fire. we can do the e-ban for 2016. We can just say like exactly that emergency ban list is in action.
I think the problem is if you go too far, it becomes less of a, I guess, a retro kind of thing.
It does.
And you're just like, I've got this deck from 2 years ago. Do you want to play it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think toss is like the cutoff, or
Very-
in fact, I think Master
yeah.
Rule 4 is the cutoff.
I think as well. Like no one wants to play against.
Okay,
Draco.
maybe Zodiac's the cutoff.
I think
actually.
everything
Zodiac.
Raging Tempest
Raging Tempest
onwards
backwards,
is
yeah.
you
Very
just can't
much,
play.
You cannot play that.
Because like even before Raging Tempest, you had like Windwitch Invoked,
Yeah.
Blue Eyes.
I would argue everything before Bosch.
Yeah.
That makes sense because that's
yeah.
I mean Infinity,
Because Raging
Wrath.
Tempest
They-
is a sequence of Zodiac into Nightmare Link into Goki into Spiral. It's literally a sequence of tier 0 decks. It's like so stupid. And I guess like Trickstars fit in there a little bit. World Chalice had a moment, but like other than that, it was like tier 0, tier 0, tier 0, tier 0, tier 1, toss format. Like everything got really homogenous for a bit. I mean, toss format, I would love.
I think I would love
to play a toss
I
format.
would love to
Toss format
actually
tournament would be
a
kinda
toss
cool.
format tournament seems like something that absolutely could be done and you just go great, pick one.
Because that's where I
And I
started,
think it's
and I
like-
didn't get to play it that much.
And I think also if you were to do something like that, you would go right. You can't mix the decks.
I'll play Salad.
You can't. It's like you can't play Striker
Play
Orcust.
combo Tidra
Yeah.
any day.
And that's the thing. It's like they just go, okay, you play the deck in its singularity. You don't get to mix Striker Orcust. You don't get to mix Striker with cards. Like you would be like,
I think Striker Orcust I would consider post toss. I would actually
well, because that
consider
was post Mermaid ban.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was also like after like no one was really playing pure Striker anymore. Like people were, but it wasn't popular
Because it was one Kagari.
Salamangreat had mostly fallen out of favor in the format, so it was like fringe True Draco players, Tidra players that were still holding on to it, and then Striker Orcust being the best deck by like leagues. Whereas I think like pre Striker Orcust toss, where it was literally like, okay, there is Orcust playing kitchen sink,
Yeah.
whatever. Maybe they were playing
It's the
engaged.
Bardiche stuff, right? Is that...
So it would be
Yeah.
like post Bardiche, pre Mermaid ban.
I think just after Mermaid got banned is like the sweet spot for toss. Like
Oh, I
before
could play
everyone
that
had labbed
60
out
card
Striker
engine,
Orcust
yeah.
as the best deck. I remember going to like Geek Culture Champs and it was literally like pure Striker, pure Tidra, pure Salad, pure True Draco, pure Orcust, like everywhere.
It was like Dark Warrior Orcust. Like there was
Yeah.
it was just like a bit more of like an interesting event.
There was that like there was that horrible Isolde Orcust deck.
I could play some.
Do you know who played that?
Yeah.
It was Harry, by the way.
Harry played that, yeah.
Harry played Isolde Orcust, so that was a very sweet memory.
But kind of going back to the multi-format, I think one thing that stands out to me is it's really hard to like get people into it because of the card accessibility.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean we were all bulk diving this morning, so
You look around the room today, and everyone was having fun.
yes.
It was like everyone was playing with a smile on their face. Like it was more of a casual tournament, but like everyone was just like absolutely vibing. Like there
Vibing
was
so hard.
Like the Harpies player was like, I saw a really cool game between Harpies and Sylvans.
Yeah.
And I found myself, I was playing my own game, and I was kind of
Yeah,
just like watching their
When
game.
you were playing Cleefort, so you
And
weren't having
I
any
didn't.
fun.
I didn't have any fun. But like, you just saw like people smiling, enjoying the
Yeah.
slower pace of Yu-Gi-Oh, but like not so slow that it's like leagues apart from what we're playing at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's why it is such a success and so fun.
And the
to
fact
play.
that like I lost my Tellarknight match because I didn't know Deltaros couldn't summon from grave. Like that minute of like an interaction.
Or you could, or like if you attempted to reborn the Deneb, it still searches
Yeah,
even
like
if
little
even if
interactions
call is
like that.
popped. Yeah.
That had more than like my VDub games where I was just like, I opened 5 garnets, I lost immediately, and there was no chance for me to come back.
Speaking of that, Zach, he used to play that deck.
He did, yeah.
religiously back in that format. Like,
I
he
felt
only
like he,
played Satellarknight.
I felt like a little bit of an intimidation going into that
Yeah,
era
yeah.
because I'm just like, I haven't read these cards very well. I haven't read these in a while, and you played them back in the day. So
I think I watched your first game today as well, which was triple Call of the Haunted and double Alpha.
my first hand, again, keeping credit with my first hands of these tournaments
Yeah.
being bricks, was triple Call of the Haunted, double Alpha, top decked an Alpha, and I was like,
And you
then,
were
like-
against Tash, who was playing Harpies, and
All she
I
needs
didn't
to
wanna
find
set
is a
my hand.
hunting ground.
I didn't want to set
Find a
my hand
monster.
because I was like, oh my god, it's all going to die. And then like I top decked a monster, and I'm like, well, now that I have Deneb, this is the most insane freaking hand I've ever drawn because I'm protected. I've double alpha, call the haunted. Like, oh man, it was so good.
But like even like I looked across, Keza was playing wind up hand loop, and like he just hand looped a Dragon Ruler player, and like they were both smiling and laughing about it.
It's
Like,
just like
whereas,
who cares?
whereas like when it's a more serious tournament, you lose. I know I definitely get gutted
You
when
get
I lose.
salty
I'm
as
just like,
hell.
Yeah, you
I
just
lost.
put all
And
this
then
work
you
into it.
you feel a bit down because I put like I could have probably put more effort into the 3v3 preparations, but like you put effort into it and you think that I thought we were going to do a lot better than we did. That's my opinion.
Sure,
Yeah. And I was excited. I was like, oh, we could actually take this thing out, and then round 1 you lose and you're like, oh man, that
Round 1
sucks.
losses suck everywhere.
But like in this one, you lose a game and you're like, you know what? I
Having fun.
enjoyed losing to that.
Yeah.
That was
I mean,
fun.
I think part of why that happens is the fact that you pick a topping list from the past. Because it's like, well, I lost, but it's Jake Ruger's fault for not playing 3 Vanities. I'm
Yeah.
going to be real. Like, come on, if I played 3 Vanities, I would have beaten every...
it's
you can
Robert's-
kind of be
Yeah.
cheeky about, like, old lists. And, yeah, okay, maybe sometimes you're playing, like, a Patrick Hoban list or, like... And you're like, okay, I'm not as good as Patrick Hoban, so I think it's probably my fault.
I think those
Yeah.
lists as well, they're very much in a time capsule. And like,
Yeah.
you, as you say, you read these cards and you're like, why was that in there? And there
Yeah.
will be a niche reason that
Ojama
was
was
in
for
there.
BA.
For BA,
Honest
yeah.
was for Towers.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And there are really weird cards as well. You're like, why did they use that? And then
Spell
you're like,
shatterings, because you're like,
Yeah.
why? You're just popping back row.
It's
Like,
for the mirror, apparently.
yeah, apparently,
Yeah,
but
well,
it's
yeah. No, and I think it's really cool. It gives people that didn't
Yeah.
experience those formats a chance to experience the formats. It brings up interactions that you've never seen before. Like,
Yeah.
who would ever have thought playing Cleafort against Spellbook? Like, that's not a matchup you think about. Like,
I can attest to the fact, looking at the time, where we spent 40 minutes talking about cross format and 20 minutes talking about modern formats.
Yes.
So
yeah.
yeah,
I will also say that even though it's inaccessible, it's quite budget too. Like, a lot of the lists we put together were like plat red,
Yeah.
Book of Moons, and like gold droplets. It's like
You
not
don't care.
droplets,
Chalices.
Like,
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cheap unless you want to go the route of Max, which
which you don't need to.
Shane and Scott and me and Ruben were doing, which is fun as well, because you can be like, oh, I've got like 2 Ghost Deltaros, and even though I never summoned the second one,
Yeah.
it's so pretty.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, of course I'm playing my ulti-dualities
Multi-dualities,
in Cleese,
you're like,
which
oh.
are European First Ed Secrets. Like, I can't have, and it's like original print Ultra
Sorry,
Scouts,
Joe, you-
Sacrifices.
Joe was playing
I played
today.
some rare ones, or I've got some super ones. I think I was playing today.
Yeah,
like,
but-
the
and-
fact is we could literally chucked bulk on the floor,
And got
and we
decks.
managed to build decks.
Yeah, Phil
out.
went
Yeah, I mean, I want to.
Evil
Yeah,
Swarm.
I'd love to
Yeah,
shout out
exactly.
right now that Phil Brooks went 4-1 with an
Evil
Evil
Swarm
Swarm deck that we built last
Literally out of
night.
bulk.
We would
out of
literally
bulk.
out
we
of
were
bulk.
literally like, this deck's pretty nice and simple. Like, you can do well with it.
Yeah.
Summon Ophion, set your traps.
Which, Joe, I think
That's
you can
enough.
attest. That's how Evil Swarm deck builders used to play anyway.
Exactly.
They
It's
just dug through bulk and were like, I don't know, I'll play this. This will do well. And they
traps and Ophion.
go like, yeah.
Yeah.
They just
And
be like,
it's
I don't
enough.
know, I'll play like Solemn Wishes. That'll be fine. And then they still top because it's Ophion pass is
Yeah,
enough.
and it was crazy. Like, I think that was the one thing that we were discussing with Phil and even Shane and Scott, who also were here as well. We were like, okay, this was the only deck during 2013 that popped up. Like, in that particular Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy format, you were only experiencing Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks, but
Yes.
Evil
Yeah.
Swarm made themselves known
Yeah,
because
Pandemic for
of
Spellbooks and Ophion for Dragon Rulers.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, and it was just so cool that there was like in a bulk, an Evil
Yeah.
Swarm deck that we could pull together, find a list, had all the cards like commons.
But it
Some
helped
of them
that
were kind of
Skaggs
hard to
quit in
find.
Duelist Alliance format,
Exactly.
so he just had everything.
He literally has like a capsule of that format
Yeah.
in bulk, which helped a lot. But like I really enjoyed the experience of like last night building decks together, and then seeing the people play these decks the next day and do well and like have fun. Like you
When
should
you
see.
come up to Auckland, we'll do it there.
Yeah, we could do it there. Yeah, I mean. You saw Phil's face when he beat Dino in that game.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, yes,
And
know,
you saw
like,
Dino's
yeah,
face
and-
when he lost to
yeah,
Phil.
Exactly, yeah.
he's like, that's a
The little
flying
stick
C on
eye.
the board.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, but I
When he
mean,
top decked, what was the card he top decked?
Kirkion.
Kirkion.
yeah.
And it's just like, you son of a... Okay, I'm dead.
And shout out as well to Cheese TCG Connor for sticking with Sylvans. Like
Coming 19th out of 19
19th out of
players.
19th, but
Yeah.
But I mean, he stuck with a cool deck.
He won the
it's
3v3, so
Very
he's fine.
rough. Yeah, it's very rough in that format. But like,
We were discussing it in the car actually over here that Sylvan succeeded in a time post September 2013 ban list that killed Judgment, the Spellbooks, and Dragon Rulers,
And pre-Duelist
but pre-Duelist Alliance
Yeah.
before the entirety of that deck, those deck
They
cores
were
came
like
out.
the DDD of their time. They got like 2 weeks to be
I think
meta, and then
it got one. Or I think
It was
Hoban-
Cody
one
Angeloff.
YCS.
Hoban's list.
Was it
wa-
Hoban or was it Cody
Cody
Angeloff?
Angeloff won a YCS with it.
Yes, but Hoban topped during Duelist Alliance format, I believe, with Sylvans.
That is
You would
correct.
too.
Yeah.
So, but they're different players.
Just like how Jeff
Yeah.
Jones would just like keep playing Boojins, and everyone's
Yes.
like, Jeff, the deck's dead, and he's like,
no.
check this out.
Yeah.
Tsukuyomi Honest, and everyone's like, oh, fucking Jeff, stop. I'm
Yeah.
sick of this shit.
So I guess I can't see the time.
An hour.
Oh, great. I mean, what a great time. So I'm timekeeping. But I guess final thoughts for this. What is a deck that you would like to see played at a multi-format event? Like, what's a deck that either you've already seen once, maybe at the Dunedin one, or you saw here, or maybe something that's like in the history books that just hasn't been piloted?
My one is definitely Trap Burn and Abyss, and and I know I've said that before at the start, but I feel like that one there just has no deck like it, where it can float. It has back row that just does a lot for you, and it can just out a lot of things, and it can end games really fast.
It's like Tri Brigade now.
Very
It's
much
like everything
so, yeah.
floats, everything pops, everything
Everything
gets
does
advantage.
something.
Yeah.
And it's Dante Mill, make a Virgil, shuffle away, turn, attack, gain. It's very cool. It's very fast. I believe it will keep up with Spellworks and Dragon Rulers. I'd like to see it though.
For me, and I'm absolutely going to make it my goal for the next one, is Insectors.
Very much.
I would
That's
love
so cool.
to be Hornet Dragon flying people, because I think it is such a unique strategy that came out of Order of Chaos that, obviously windups were everywhere. But Insectors is just like, you just have Dragonfly and you can break the board.
It's funny because Windups does, I think, hang the best in the modern stuff, because
Yes.
I think Windup Hand Loop would still beat Sword Soul now.
Yep.
Right? Like if they lost 4 cards out of their hand, what are they gonna do? A lot of the time they're just dead.
Yeah.
Whereas I think
Pick a tire.
Insectors are a little slower. They kind of remind me of Teledad, where they win the game because they pop all your stuff, but if you just set up a board, they can't really do anything. And if you they go first, they can't really do anything. But I do like it. It's a cool engine.
Yeah. What about you, Lucas? What's a deck that you'd like to see representative at a multi-format? Whether it's already been done or you'd like to see it again?
The tough thing is the decks I like are from 2016. So Totally Heroes, Metal Foes would be awesome. I think those decks hang in the
City.
realm that isn't so broken. Decks like Cosmo, I guess I like the underdogs, and I was saying to Joe as well, we should probably do one of these that is only, not exactly non-meta, because you still have to get topping lists,
Yes,
but the fringe. You're not allowed to play the stuff like BA that just topped 700 YCSs. You gotta play Sylvans, Battery Men, the Harpy lists.
Yeah.
People who were just playing Watts. Stuff like that would be really fun too, because it would only generate jank matches and no one would have to lose to Jowgen Pass or I drew 5 Dragon Rulers in Super Rejuve. Haha. There are some interactions in old Yu-Gi-Oh! That just blow.
Yeah.
And you're just what was I supposed to do?
One deck that I kind of thought about was, I know it's not great, but Blackwings are
Yeah.
a pretty decent deck.
Vayu Turbo is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
After-
The Vayu Blackwings.
Yeah.
That was valuable, post Blackwings being originally meta.
I
'cause it was
remember,
just a synchro spam deck.
There was a list that Karen Sommer won GP champs with. I think it was a bit later on. I think it might be 2016. But his whole thing was he made a Key Beetle Vanity Lock with Blackwings, and
Jesus.
that's what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can do that in
Infinities
Season
as well.
Infinity.
Yeah, Infinity. So I guess that deck does it better. But there's definitely a lot of decks
Yeah.
on the fringe that we haven't thought about.
I still think-
X-Sabers is another one.
X-Sabers,
that,
Spark Heroes that
Yeah.
you have at home.
Like nothing that won Worlds, nothing that won a YCS, right? That would be the rule, I guess. And
it's very hard to place. It'll be very similar to the non-meta thing where we it's hard to define it completely.
True, but it's easier when it's a format that's already happened.
Solved, yeah.
Everyone knows that in Duelist Alliance format, the best decks were Cleese, Shadows, Burning Abyss,
Correct,
Tellarknights, and
mean,
Infernities.
yeah.
And
that was the
throw
5
in
best decks.
Spellbook and Dragon
So
Rulers.
all you
are the
have
ones
to
that
do
keep
is
up
say
with
if
it,
you're playing a 2014 deck, those decks are banned.
Yes,
So
okay.
you can play Yang Zings. You can play, I guess Cleefort's kind of wasn't that dominant in that
Not
era.
until 2000,
You know what I mean? You
yeah.
can still play Cleese and Yang Zings and whatever other jank pendulum deck was possible with the structure deck and stuff like that, but you can't play the most broken stuff, and I think that would be awesome.
think it would be.
You play 2012 format, you got Dark Worlds, you got Hero Beat, you got Piper Chaos, you got, I think that would be
Yeah,
sick.
I think so. Yeah.
And maybe you get a bit more lenient, if you go back to 2011, you can just play Tengu Plants. No one's going to be mad at you for
TG
playing...
Agents, yeah.
No one's going to be mad at you for playing Tengu Plants. That's fine.
Do you guys think there'll be more of these in New Zealand? Do you reckon that would be
Hell yeah.
a thing that we should carry on?
I reckon we're
pushing
going to
and
do one in
promoting
Auckland. For sure. We can talk.
I mean, we're seeing more stores now opening up to the time, now that it's
Time with
officially
that, yeah.
a sanctionable
I mean, when
event
Wilson was
format.
at Shuffle, they were doing GOAT, and I think they've started doing Edison, and
Yeah.
was it another format?
No, it's Goat and Edison.
Goat and Edison in Hamilton, and I think that's a good example as well, is to pick an era and just go that's the era, Edison, again, like Goat, a little more fun because you can build your own decks.
I think Edison is cool. Goat, I think I've spoken about this before lots of times. I just
Not your thing.
Yeah, like
That's fine.
the amount of times I've been like, they had Pot of Greed and Duo, I lost. Like, it's kind of like
it replicates a modern Yu-Gi-Oh disappointment of like, oh, they drew Ecclesia. Oh yeah, like
exactly.
It isn't as fun.
I quite like the Edison format. I think that multi-format tournaments spark excitement in the community. And
what is the Dwyer format called? Like, does it have a name?
No.
Just Duelist Alliance. Like, it would be cool if it had a name because I think it actually is a pretty good one.
It might, but
not to my knowledge. I do just recognize it as the Duelist Alliance
because you
format.
got Toss, Edison, Goat. Like, Duelist Alliance needs like.
I can't really think of any other format that's been defined by a set name.
I mean, you could
like,
call it Four Horsemen because it really was like these 4 decks.
But then there was a fifth and like Necros.
No, it was Burning Abyss. It was Shadows. It was
Cleese and Satellas.
Cleese and Satellas.
Yeah, okay.
So like it's the Four Horsemen set.
Yeah.
What did you call them? God formats?
I suppose it is, yeah.
God formats are when there are like 10 or more variable meta decks, like in any format. It's more of a Magic the Gathering thing because they don't have tier 1 formats like ever.
I saw Uro, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Like it is. Four Horsemen's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that was also a Magic the Gathering thing, but that references their first 4 expansions.
Sure.
So it's a bit different.
I guess you could argue in a way that Eternal format, yes, it was a try kind of format, but sneak Pendulum in there and it's kind of the same.
But they got Toss,
Yeah, Toss, I suppose, yeah.
Toss is a good
Toss
name.
is cool.
Yeah, Toss is good.
When you abbreviate the 4 decks, BA, Shadow, Cleave, Q makes it really tough.
They're also all consonants.
Yeah, well...
There you go, that's probably
Someone
why
from-
it's Duelist
someone from the
Alliance
Netherlands.
format.
Yeah, Duelist Alliance format or Four Horsemen.
Someone
that's
from one
what
of those countries like the Netherlands that don't use vowels. Can you find a word that works for that?
Yeah.
But I think all in all, a great weekend so far for us. Obviously, we've got we've got one more day here. But I think it's been amazing to see this local store, see a new environment of people, very welcoming, very inviting.
Yeah.
I would like to make a particular shout out to the female Yu-Gi-Oh players.
That's true.
You are important and you are valid, and I want to see more female Yu-Gi-Oh players into the future.
I didn't want to like talk to them about it because I'm just like I don't want to bring it up, but it's so exciting to see. I mean, non-men playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, you know, I'm non-binary and like don't feel like I see a lot of, you know, non-men playing card games in general. So I was happy.
That's amazing. And I think Palmerston North has got a great community. Obviously, Joe, I know you've worked very hard to build it.
I'll shout out Joe too because talking to Tash, she said like you were the one that approached her and said like, you want to play hobby? Like you were getting her excited about.
I think
she was there casually and you got her into like playing it.
Yeah, I'm super stoked with our community. Like I feel like everyone in there we're all super friendly with each other. Like it's a very like welcoming thing. Like any players out there in Palmy that do want to play, like don't hesitate, just come in and play. Like
or anywhere outside of Palmerston North, close.
It's not a scary hobby. Like there's not meta just dominating everything. Everyone brings the decks that they want to play and have fun with. And it's growing. Like we got like 16 plus regular players. So like, yeah.
And that's amazing. I think that, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh's doing really well. Obviously, if anyone listening enjoys Master Duel and is around the Palmerston North area, why not enjoy some cards in person and hop down to Valkyrie Games and play some hobby? And obviously, thank you to Valkyrie Games for hosting these great events.
They were great,
be sure to check out their Facebook page and come down to their regional, which is hosted the 12th of March.
They sell stuff online. Go buy singles. Go
buy product.
I was actually really tempted. They have heaps of secret layers, like the Magic secret layers that you can't get without pre-ordering. So I was like, do I spend all my money on these or do I buy your cards? What do I do?
And I'll do a quick shout out as well to Toby and Morgan, like the staff members there that helped us out.
Yeah.
Like Toby, the manager of Valk, he put on a great event in the end. Like it was, we went in, we actually had 3 teams show up that weren't registered, and we had to quickly throw some tables upstairs, but we made it work. And it was overall like a very successful event. Valkyrie were like very shocked that 48 players showed up. They'd never seen that many Yu-Gi-Oh players in one place before, and now they're really excited for the regional. And I want to see those numbers again. Like I want to see players out of town.
You will.
In, and I think we will.
You will. So yeah, be sure to check out Valkyrie Games and make sure to attend their regional on the 12th of March.
Correct. Yep.
Obviously, it's going to be a great one. That's the Battle of Chaos, and you have the chance of winning a deck box. That's a new design that I can't announce yet.
Nice.
and a playmat that involves the illusion of chaos design on it. But I mean, that's pretty much us, obviously. Thank you so much to everyone who has listened. Please feel free to, if you are listening along with us on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with your friend. It does help, as
Leave us
always.
a review on Apple Podcasts.
Leave us a review
actually.
on your favorite podcasting
We
app.
should make that clear. Like, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts is like crazy good. Like, compared to liking and subscribing, it's like a 10 times.
I think even Spotify has a rating system.
Spotify has a rating system too.
You can rate us on your preferred podcasting app or method. Obviously, that helps as well. Share with a friend.
We need to like tighten this down. I feel like we always have like so much.
I feel like I've got it. I feel you. I always have it, and I get interrupted. I have a good
There's
memory.
just so much to cover.
But I mean, like, I think I've got it. I feel like now I've been thrown off the groove. I got kicked off.
Questions,
yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or queries or rulings that you'd like to know more about, please feel free to email us at thefacedowns@gmail.com. We will be doing a podcast answering the question that was given to us. We've had some incredible responses and can't wait to analyze that one. And yeah, please feel free to let us know if you have anything you'd want us to talk about, any old formats you'd like to hear more about, any old formats you'd like to play, any old decks you'd like to play.
Like we forgot or just haven't really brought up that we've mentioned. I mean, we talked about a lot of it, but
And I think even like give us some thoughts on the current format.
Yeah,
Tell us what you think
we've got a new
about
format
that.
starting tomorrow as of in New Zealand. So let us know what you think is going to be taking the game's going forward, because it's definitely not Drytron.
Ross says Adventure is
Wait,
bad
wait,
in Ross says Adventure is crap in PK, so let's see if that's true.
Let's see how that one hangs. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Ruben.
I'm Lucas.
And I'm Joe.
And you've been listening to The Face
Face
Downs.
Oh, I can't even
We've
do it
always
live.
been terrible. That's the secret. Such a troll, Joe. Such a troll.